So nice to meet you, Jason. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh man, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, it's great.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people in our lives are really excited about this conversation. So
as are we.
Yeah, you can count us among them. Yeah.
I'm a big Weezer fan, so.
I have to say, that's one of the amazing things is that how you remained a Weezer fan. You know what I mean? Some people maybe would have approached that experience differently, but you have always expressed your gratitude for the experience and your love for their music, which I love as a fan of Weezer myself.
Yeah, no, I mean, haters are gonna hate, but not me.
That's excellent.
No. Yeah, no, I was roommates with Pat and Rivers and Matt for a while, and before the band started, and then during, and it's like one of those just. I mean, even if the band wasn't as huge as they are now or totally unknown, I would still look back on it as like, oh my God, what an amazing experience, because it truly was.
Right. And you were so young, moving out to LA at what, 19, something like that, 19, 20. It's just, those are times that just do resonate and just stand out in your memory, I'm sure, regardless of what you're doing. But it turns out you were making this amazing music. So all the better,
Just showing up and holding a guitar, hopefully in tune, and being told what to play mostly. But yeah.
Yeah, tune down a half step, of course. You got to do it the Weezer way. I love that Rivers quote that he said to you, E flat for life. That's how it's got to be. So how, on a human level, how are you doing with everything that's going on right now? With the quarantine, how are you and your family dealing with everything?
I'm well, thank you. I hope everybody is, taking precautions. Obviously, this is very, scary, unprecedented time. And my kids are well. I just, check in on them. They're all grown up now, but my family's okay. I know a lot of people who are healthcare workers. I was just talking with a friend of mine named Brian T, who is an ICU nurse, like a very experienced ICU nurse. And so, it's scary for them, like they're people on the front lines right now. Like, it's kind of like, fuck, is this life or death? Like, what's gonna, that's
right.
Real. And I don't know, I can't speak to anybody else's experience. Like when I come home from the grocery store, I take off all my clothes and throw them in the washer and then go take a hot shower. And then I'm like, what do I do with these groceries? Are they covered with this stuff? And it's like, like I feel I feel a lot of compassion for people with OCD. I've been, close with people in my life who, need to stay clean, and I get it. And it's like, now that's kind of the new normal for everybody in a way.
Right. I was going to say, it's like, welcome to my world. You know what I mean?
It's like, I've been here.
Yeah, you guys don't wash your hands incessantly? What's the matter with you people?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the rest of us are catching up. Sorry to be so sloppy all this time.
Yeah, seriously, because I bet your skin on your hands looks fine. I've developed these horrible rashes on my skin from washing my hands so much. I can't even believe it.
Yeah, he's like anti-cleanliness, which is, it's funny. It's like an odd couple thing.
Mm-hmm. I try to get as dirty as possible to keep my immune system.
Is it true if you wash your hands too much, then you get like cracks and it gets dry, and then the viruses can get in that way and you get sick anyways?
Come on, man. You're terrifying me.
Sorry.
I don't need this.
That's it. No more hand washing.
That's it. I'm done.
We're done.
I'm over it.
I don't know how it works.
Oh, yeah. One of our fans just said, not me. I haven't showered in 4 days.
Wow. Way to go, Jay Common. That's hardcore. I guess that's the benefit of quarantine. Who do you got to impress, True. And have you had time to work on music? Like, how has it affected your day-to-day life? Because I know you've been recording incessantly for the past, really, year plus, it seems.
Yeah. Lots of writing, mostly over the past year. And then slowly, working back into, figuring out how to be a recording artist. Because, this is something I've, taken like a decade off of to just...
Right.
Round in and just be like a dad or whatever. But yeah, I have a little studio in Oakland, California, where I've been collaborating with some really talented people, and then reaching out to the local community in the North Bay. Rob Ehlers, Brian Kenny, Camilo Landau, Michael James, a bunch of really cool, exciting musicians and record producer types who I've been collaborating with. And So we've finished mastering 6 songs like a week and a half ago.
Oh,
Nice.
wow. Excellent.
And now we're sort of like talking like, well, you know, like I've got like a kind of like a, you know, a marketing strategy thing that I'm kind of working on, and just sort of like, okay, like, you know, let's do some artwork and, you know, just the next steps. And then meanwhile, with all this going on, you know, the team of people I've put together were like, hey, you've got a bunch more songs. Why don't we record like, you know, 5 more and make it an 11 song LP that we, you know, and just keep recording, and obviously start, because people just release singles mostly
Right.
now, culminates in like a, oh, this is the album, if you, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah, it adds up to an album eventually. Yeah.
so yeah, we're getting there, and I'm excited. I've got some really fun music to share with everybody. You know, there's some stuff on like some sort of demo-y kind of like garagey stuff on SoundCloud, and I've just been sort of like, you know, doing one of these, you know, I mean, it's hilarious how the whole marketing thing works these days with like, you know, you buy ad space on Facebook, right? In order to public, everybody's got their own television channel at this point, right?
Right.
It's true.
Which is kind of amazing. It's a different world though than the one you left the last time you were actively making music.
It's like the Twilight Zone for real now.
Yeah. Speaking of, how many of those songs that you're currently working on have you written all of those in the more recent past, or are these kind of songs that you've been sitting on for a long time?
No, this is all new stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, there's been a couple like starts and stops over the years with me with, you know, like new songs. Like I mean, it, you know, the coronavirus is a hilarious sort of like footnote in my recording career as a, you know, like a post Weezer, post Chopper One perspective. Like when I did a record with Josh Freese in the late 90s, really great guy. You know, he's a Weezer alum, and this,
Cool.
Oh, for sure.
yeah, we met, and this was, you know, before he played with them, and we just, and it was around the time Napster kind of took off, and the music industry kind of went from like, you know, doing this to right.
Right.
And I remember at the time thinking like, well, should I go out and try to get a record deal or market this? And asking some of my friends in the business, and they were like, there's nothing I can do for you. It's a complete, like, they were like, the world is ending. And I was like, oh, the world is ending. Okay, well, all right. And so, you know, and then everybody bought an iPod, right? And that was, you didn't buy more for a while, you just bought an iPod, you know, and got all your music for free. And then now to Spotify, you know, or whatever, you know, streaming.
Right, streaming, yeah.
Yeah, so it's changed a couple times since I stopped trying to, you know, make music my vocation, if you will, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's a trip.
Curious how your experience with Weezer, you know, writing songs, developing songs with Rivers and Pat and Matt, does that still bleed into your songwriting to this day? Lessons you learned from the early days writing songs with such gifted songwriters, all of them.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, I look at that time as like, you know, okay, there's a couple different ways to unpack that. It was a little confusing, you know, as a young man to watch them go on to attain such great success and not have as many opportunities, you know, thereafter. You know, while trying, I didn't get, you know, a record deal with Geffen, or, you know, like a video with Spike Jonze, and really cool stuff that they did that, you know, I think really put them ahead of the pack and helped them become, you know, literally one of the most influential bands out of the 90s. I mean, I don't think that's overstating it. I think they really are.
No.
Yeah. And so, you know, thinking back on it about songwriting and, you know, watching Pat up close, because, you know, I would come home from work and he'd be just like plugging away in this little home studio we had put together, or, you know, going over to Rivers' house, you know, a little further into West LA, and listening to what he was putting together and just kind of soaking it all in. And it was really magical, and it was really beautiful. And there were, you know, touchstone moments, like, you know, I remember when Rivers showed us Say It Ain't So, and it was like, what? Like, you just wrote that song, and you just, you know, Pat and I think Matt also, and I can't speak for him as much, but I certainly knew, I was like, that's a great song. Like, that is, it's personal. It's got, you know, there's like this metaphor, imagery, and it was almost country western, but it had hip sort of like, you know, LA band vibe that was, you know, completely unique at the time. And so all of that, you know, long story short, is it was just super inspiring, and still is, you know, like I can pick up a guitar and goof around on stuff, and if I, you know, have my little process for being creative and sort of opening the channel, and if I get stuck, you know, like I'll just, if I get stuck while I'm recording, I'll, like, you know, say a little prayer to Rick Ocasek, like, Rick, what would you do here, you know? Wait, and I'll just see like his face, and he'll be smiling, and, you know, he won't say anything, and I'm like, okay, I guess I know what to do. Just try to do what Rick would do, or do what Chris Shaw would do. And as far as songwriting, like, I can certainly draw on, you know, Rivers directly as an influence, and Pat directly as an influence, and just, you know, from a more personal and a more intimate perspective, I think, you know, I mean, it is unique, and I'm very grateful. So I just try to find gratitude in all that, and just kind of laugh about it. Like, yeah, Weezer's, like, if I had not been in the band, I would still like the band, I'm pretty sure.
And speaking to that point about Rick and his influence on you as a songwriter and as a human being, how did you deal with his passing? Did that affect you greatly? And
yeah, that was really sad, you know, like, he was, I mean, my goodness, Rick Ocasek is one of my mentors for life, you know. This is the guy who, like, when I was, you know, like, you know, leading up to me leaving the band, and there being, like, you know, friction, and, you know, just like how bands get along, which, you know, that probably you could write a book on that, or do a whole series of podcasts just on that. He said something to me that just really, it still resonates today, and I will always remember this. I was like, how would you handle this? Like, what should I do? And he said, you just got to kill him with kindness.
Wow.
I was like, and I thought about his, you know, history. Like, this is a guy who, you know, found success with a band, and those guys were famous for, the Cars were famous for not, you know, having, like, friction and not really getting along, and having to stay together in order to keep the gravy train rolling and make a living, and, you know, do whatever it is they did a lot. They had a lot of hit songs and a lot of great tours, and so yeah, he said, kill him with kindness, and I was just like, wow, that's deep. That means a lot. Like, there's a lot, you know, and I was just a kid, but, you know, the gravity of it was not lost, you know?
And that's such a legitimate source from which to hear such advice, because, you know, he's been through it. He's been through conflicts like this countless times at that point. And he's like, here's what works for me. You know? Yeah. And what a takeaway. It's like, just be kind, you know? When things don't work out, remain human.
That's it. That's the best. I mean, that's what we should do for each other in any circumstance. And it's, you know, it's like a dog eat dog world, and, you know, people are, that you see a meme once in a while lately where it's like, you know, oh, if you were born with a heart in these times, you've got to learn to be heartless and stuff. And I'm just like, no, man, we got to be nice to each other. Like, we have, you know, there's so much bullying, and there's so much, you know, like, I mean, there's a lot of hate on the internet now, you know, kids are mean to each other, and it's like, that's not right. That doesn't work. You can't be mean to people, you know. It's why? Because, I mean, like, you know, I'll be like doing something on my little, you know, like, oh, Jason Cropper Music Facebook page or whatever, and somebody will come in and say, like, something really mean and really nasty and really triggering, and I'll like take, you know, sometimes I'll just block them, but sometimes I'll write like, hey, Joe, or, you know, whatever the kid's name is, we all know you're really hurt. I'm so sorry about whatever happened, and it, you know, like, let's try to be friends. Like, let's try to be nice to each other if you want, you know.
Take that high road. That's awesome, man.
I don't know.
So speaking of taking the high road, if I can ask a tough question. So for those who don't know, obviously you tracked almost all of the guitar for the Blue album, and then things went sour, and you left the band, and Rivers re-recorded all of your parts in a day. So the fable goes. How did you feel having all of your parts re-recorded? Did you think that that was necessary, and did you harbor any ill will, or what were your thoughts, I guess, at the time and then now?
You know, I can answer that a couple different ways. Number one, Rivers is by far a superior guitar player to me.
You're very humble.
No, he's amazing. Okay, like I could go on, I could just do an interview about Rivers' guitar playing. Guy's freaking gifted. I always loved playing with him. We had these like long, we would do these long like warm-up jams in the studio, right, where we would just play. We would trade, fours. Like you do a solo and whatever chord progression I'm playing, and then I'll do a solo and whatever chord progression you're playing. And it was like we would just morph these long jams and just smiling at each other and just laughing and
that's awesome.
Goofing around. We had, there was a really fun time up in the attic of Electric Lady's studio. Rick let Rivers and me go up there alone for a few days and just work on guitar overdubs and just find our sort of creative vibe together, just the two of us. And it was a really special time. And, we came up with like the tremolo Fender twin reverb sound on the intro of the Sweater Song. And or other, like the sort of the octave slide solo workout dueling tension and resolve thing in Only in Dreams, and some of these really cool iconic parts of the Blue Album that were very guitar centric, and we got to futz with the tone and all those fun little things that I just I still like doing stuff like that now, and that was just like such a benchmark without any expectation of what was to come. It was like nobody knew that the Blue Album was gonna be that big or successful. But when I remember there was a conversation that Rivers and I had after I had left the band, and he said to me something like, we're going to replace all your parts, and don't be upset about it. It's still going to be a good record, and you're still involved with us, because you've played a part in the band, and let's just remain friends and kind to each other, and we'll have we'll take care of you or whatever if we're doing well, and we'll be fair, and I couldn't complain. I mean, I was at home with my newly born first daughter, Kiefer, who I'm still very, very close with to this day. We talk every day, and I was just like, I mean, what could I say at that point? It's like, it's his band. It had always been his band, and that was something.
And we all, as Weezer fans, we all know that.
yeah, come on, Rivers is fucking amazing. Like, get with it. Like, if you don't know, like, we'll tell you, because that's what fans do. And Pat's amazing, and Matt was amazing, what he contributed, and Brian's amazing, and Mikey was amazing, and Scott's amazing, and there's been a lot, and Josh is amazing. There's a lot of Carl is amazing. There's a lot of, Michael and Carly were amazing. I mean, there's a lot of great like contributions that have gone into this project over the years. And I think, I probably couldn't articulate this at the time, but, something I try to live by now is, the idea of principles before personalities. And I think that the principle of, the Blue Album was one of the principles of what makes the Blue Album a good album in terms of the production and the songwriting and all that, is like the song first and the performance first. And it wasn't about, that was the cool thing about Weezer. It was like, Weezer was like kind of an anti-band in a way. It was like, there wasn't a star. The star was the song. The star was the video. The star was the band, right? The star was the ingenuity and the inventiveness around the branding, or the maybe not the marketing, because that was more of like a David Geffen company like machine thing, but the art, right? The sort of the principle of the project being this. I don't know. I don't really have the words for it, but I think you guys get my meaning. It's like the song.
No doubt.
It's the and And Rivers is a rock star. Like, let's face it, he's fucking amazing, right? But he's grown into that too.
He has. He seems more comfortable now than ever in that role.
Yeah.
You know, you can see early on in the, you know, especially in the Sweater Song video and stuff, you go, oh, this guy's like, what am I doing here? You know, like, you know, I'm sure he was, but he seemed like a supremely confident being in the rehearsal room, in the studio, like a guy with vision and a guy who knew what he wanted. Is that an accurate assessment?
Absolutely. Rivers, you know, he's a visionary. It's as simple, you know. He's been that way ever since I met him, and it was really fun to like congregate around that energy early on, you know, in the band's arc. It really was. It was special.
I can only imagine. That's awesome.
I actually have one quick follow-up to the guitar replacement thing, because it never occurred to me to ask this. When you listen to the record, where you're like, hey, that's not how I played that. Like, obviously you knew it wasn't you, but where you're like, hey, he changed my part.
No, I mean, a little bit here and there. I think it was, I don't know. I remember talking with Chris Shaw about this a little bit after the fact, and not in, you know, just in like in passing, you know, catching up like a couple years later, and just, you know, us talking about it, because he was, I mean, more, you know, he was invested in every single second of, you know, recording, whether it was, you know, any of the guys in the band or the whole band playing together. I mean, he had to make sure everything was perfect, and he did. Great engineer, great record producer, and I don't remember the exact words he said to me. It was something along the lines of, you know, like either Brian or Rivers primarily, I guess, came in and like played, you know, facsimile wherever possible over anything that I had done, and I don't know if Rick had them bring in another tape machine and synchronize it, and then it was like, okay, I'm not going to erase anything that Jason did. They're going to play it the same or better, or we're going to use it or something. You know, I think that was the impression I got from Chris, and just, you know, passing casual conversation about it.
Gotcha.
Because, you know, there was a time when I was curious. It was like I didn't listen to the record for a long time because I was kind of despondent and, you know, disappointed and sad that I wasn't part of it. But then eventually it was like you could not listen to it.
It was all over the TV and the radio.
And you can either hate it or you can join it, you know?
Yeah, no, it was like if I was going to listen to K-Rock, I was going to hear, you know, the Sweater Song, Buddy Holly, Say It Ain't So, My Name Is Jonas eventually became a single. Like, fuck, that's amazing. Like, I song, it's on the radio. This is awesome, you know?
Right.
So I think they did a great job. I mean, that's really all I can say about it. That makes sense. I think they did whatever they did, I'm glad they did it. And again, Rivers is an amazing guitar player. He's just one of the best guys. Like, you can put him up against crazy shredder guys like Paul Gilbert, or iconic guys like Carlos Santana, or, you know, Stevie Ray Vaughan type people like John Mayer. Rivers can hold his own in a like hardcore musical chops, like amazing player way, you know, like
it's true. We hardly ever get to see it either.
Yeah, he doesn't flex that.
He doesn't flex it that hard. But I will say we got to see them in Albany last year. It was almost this time last year exactly, and he was playing his Black SG that he's super into right now, and he sounded good, man. Like, everything, he didn't miss a note. He was like spot on, a little improv here and there. It was like, I was really impressed.
Perfect situation. He let it rip.
Oh man, yeah, that was a blast.
Beverly Hills had a good solo. Yeah, I was like, yeah, Rivers the guitarist. And it kind of makes sense if you think their next album is Van Weezer. You know, it's a guitar-driven hard rock record. You could tell he was already in that headspace, maybe. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would take a solid year of like working out those chops to kind of build up to something that, you know, it's not like he takes that kind of playing seriously and is really good at it. So just like anything he does, you know, whether it's like soccer or meditation or whatever, I'm sure he'll get focused and have a plan and use that visionary energy to execute.
Right on. I've heard in interviews that you are actually a pretty big fan of the album Ratitude. And my question is why?
Yeah. I guess this goes into that minefield that Weezer fans have built over the years about like, why is Weezer like this now versus was like that then, or is that kind of the framework of that?
More or less. I was kind of being a jerk.
I told him that fact because I listened to your great interview with Rachel from We Are Weezer in preparation for this because I wanted to hear what you had spoken about and get a sense of, you know, who you were better, you know? And
well, I'm going to out myself here, you know, like okay, so let's unpack Ratitude a little bit. Like,
please.
Like what are the best songs on Ratitude? Can you just read them off to me or remind me? Because I don't remember.
I would say Tripping Down the Freeway is a great song.
Yep.
Obviously, if you're wondering if I Want You To is a classic.
Great song.
The closing track, I Don't Want to Let You Go, is a beautiful song that's really uncharacteristic of the record.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously there's I'm Your Daddy.
Oh, The Girl Got Hot. I'm Your Daddy. Can't Stop Partying.
Loves the answer in the mall.
I mean, you guys are answering the question yourself. Like, what you're saying. Why? Like, come on. How can you not like turn that on and be like, let's like get a 6-pack. Let's go. You know, like,
I honestly do like In the Mall because I really love Pat's songwriting, and it's so blatantly obvious when you hear a song that Pat's written versus a song that Rivers wrote.
No, it's, I mean, I think that there's like a I don't know if Rivers planned it this way or what, but like there's this genius in the concept of, you know, like the long-term sort of, you know, like Rivers kind of, you know, controlled the songwriting for quite a bit of this in so it doesn't die. I think the idea being that like when he finally cut Pat loose to write for the band again, it was like he was so like, you know, there was all this pedal to the metal that Pat was ready to roar there, you know, and ready to bring his A game, and it was like he just timed it right as a band leader to do it that way. And I think that that's one of the shining sort of moments of like it's like a pivot for Weezer in terms of like a company policy, if you will, you know, or whatever band policy. And so, you know, it's a cool record. I mean, it's fun, you know, it's a different flavor, it's a different style. And why not?
It is fun. And hey, we recorded a 2.5-hour podcast on that album. So, you know, you got to have at least some affection for it to talk about it that long.
Yeah, exactly. Someone just said Automatic is a great song. Speaking of the Pat Wilson stuff, I think Automatic is a far superior song than In the Mall, but it's still.
And it has his favorite Pat lyric ever. A mountain size of love.
Yeah, how do I give you a mountain size of love?
Yeah, mountain size.
Yeah, it's fun, you know. It's, I mean, I think that's one of the things about Weezer that, you know, it like there's a couple different themes, a couple different directions. There's the emo, you know, benchmark emo band, right? Like who would you call emo first? Is it Pavement or is it Weezer? Right? Who did it? Right? I don't know. I think Weezer, but that's their opinion. It's fine.
I'm with you.
And then you have like the fun stuff and the like, you know, the Pat doing this, right, and smiling and like just bringing this fun, heart-filled, goofy vibe of like we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna make sure that you have a good time.
Who was more of a party boy, and I guess who brought the goof and the fun? Was it Pat or Matt?
Pat.
For sure. He seems like the kind of guy that like anyone could just get along with.
He seems like a great hang.
I know, just a cool guy.
I mean, I will tell you, I went to see them at the Oakland Coliseum, my hometown, and I had never gone before. I had like some emotional block. I just couldn't do it for years, right?
What year was this?
This was, I think this was like, I think it was last year.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, the last time they played there, I think that was last year. And you know, they gave me a bunch of tickets, and I brought all my friends, and I went backstage, and you know, Rivers needed some privacy, but I saw as I was about to get kicked out by the roadies, Pat's like coming down the hallway, and he's like smiling, hey, you know, just like, so what's up, right? And I went into his dressing room, and it was literally, and we just like the conversation just picked up literally like right where it had left off at our our one, we had a 2-bedroom apartment on Stoner Avenue, but he and I always shared a room there because we couldn't afford to live there without a bunch of other roommates. And we would just shoot this shit in there and just talk. And it was like the same conversation from 1992 just started again, right? And like no time had gone by, and it's just fun. You're just having a real and authentic but fun time. And that's Pat.
Yeah.
That's just who he is,
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
I see Pat Finn is in this chat room right now.
Is he?
He was. I don't know if he still is, but he definitely was.
Wow, that's great. Hello, Pat Finn.
Yep, there he is.
Nice.
Any questions, Pat Finn, for Jason?
He knows more stuff than me.
Yeah, I actually have to log out because it is destroying my battery.
Oh, sure.
Like, insane.
So let's see. Okay. So we talked about Gratitude. I'm curious about more recent Weezer work. Like, when they release a record, are you like, let's hear what they're doing? Like, are you excited to listen to it? Do you keep up on it?
I check in, like a record will come out and I'll just pull up the Spotify and park it there and just go through it and listen to it. And, and sometimes I'm like, oh my God, this is freaking amazing. And other times I'm like, well, okay, maybe their best work is still ahead of them, It's like, like anybody else. But I'm not one of those Weezer, like you guys got to remember, like I was born in the early 70s. So like I remember time, not just before the internet, but before VCRs and, when you actually just, the toaster only had 2 slots, like.
Great way to put it. Yeah.
So, what Weezer fandom and the whole sort of kingdom of Weezer has done in terms of like, the meme, for example, culturally speaking, like that stuff is really like amazing. And I don't pretend to participate in that, Weezer sphere, if you will.
Sure.
I'm not like, I don't know what chat room to go to. I'm not that hip.
I'm not sure we do either, but I think people were right to come to this chat room today because this is great.
Great, yeah. I'm really enjoying this. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Of course. Anytime.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This has been really illuminating, and I just, from everything I've heard of you and read from you and the music I've listened to, I go, that's a good guy. That's a guy we should talk to.
Absolutely.
And you're not letting us down, my friend.
Cool. No, I'm pleased to be here. It's really fun. It's an honor, and anything to support the guys and what they're doing with their
Awesome.
latest.
We do have a question from our fellow listener and very avid listener, Dave. He wants to know. He would assume that your favorite of the colored albums is Blue. Don't want to make any assumptions, but what would your second favorite colored album be? And as a follow-up question, what's your second favorite color in general?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I guess it's the Red album. I like that one.
You're speaking Chris's language here.
Same. Big fan.
Yeah.
And color in general. God, I've always been partial to blue. I don't know.
Nice.
Just,
Makes sense.
Sky or water.
Cool. Do you have any thoughts on Pinkerton when you first heard it, and do you have a favorite track on Pinkerton?
Yeah. When Pinkerton came out, it was funny for me listening to it because you could tell they really, like, I think Rivers was approaching it in a way of like, okay, I know we're going to have a sophomore slump, so I'm just going to make sure that that's what it is. And stylistically, he did something I think really original. And I think that for the most part, that is the band performing those songs live without many or any overdubs. It was just like, that's what we sound like. That's who we are on these songs, and that's what you're going to get, and nothing more. No trickery, no fancy studio production, just like raw, real, honest, and it's beautiful in that respect. And I think it's genius over the long term. The fact that like the band almost broke up or whatever. Like Matt left during that time, and Rivers, went back to school and the personal stuff that he dealt with then. And I think that, I mean, it goes without saying for a band that's successful like that on their first album, like you have your whole life to come up with that first record, right? And then it's like, well, okay, so if you're super successful, what do you do then? You're like a guy in his 20s who's a millionaire, and what are you going to actually write songs about that people can relate to at that point? You know what I mean? I think he did a really, really good job at getting a great second record together, and then taking a break, taking a well-earned and needed sort of like step back to just kind of live a normal life and to not lose himself in it. And you know, everybody loves Tired of Sex, and you know, just stomping rip, like you just stomping the heck out of the drums, right?
Yeah, that halftime at the end.
Oh yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Classic Pat Wilson, right? And he's hitting the drums so hard that you can hear the stress of the drum shells. They're just like literally about to, like the metal is about to pop off the side of the drums. And he really is a horse of a man when he wants to be on a drum kit. The dude, I mean, he'll bring all like 220 pounds of just crush, you know?
Yeah.
And
he plays with real authority, but also swing. It's an odd combination.
Yeah, just fat beats blam, you know.
Yes. That's good. That's going to be one of our
Fat beats blam.
Fat beats blam. Cat beats blam. I love it.
That's good.
No,
we've never said it better than that.
He's always played like that. The first time, you know, Pat Finn and Pat Wilson and I played together was at our little rehearsal studio down in North Hollywood. I think it was on a street called Chandler, or I don't remember. Maybe Pat Finn can remind us here. But it was a rehearsal studio that Rivers and Pat had maintained over the previous year, and man, it was so loud. The drums were way too freaking loud in that place.
Right. Just too much drummer for that small a space, you know. Just
yeah,
that's great.
A beast of a man,
for sure. One of our listeners had asked if you have any, or if you've held on to any physical memorabilia from your time with the band, and if so, if you'd be willing to share.
Jeez. Probably. I probably have something buried in a storage space, or my ex-wife, Amy Wellner Cropper, does. I don't know. I'd have to search and look. I know I took a bunch of rolls of film of us, of the band, in the studio during the Blue Album, and never seen the light of day. A lot of pictures of me and Rick Ocasek just hanging out in the hallway, you know, while they're like synchronizing another tape machine or doing something, zeroing out a console or something. So.
Man, if you ever find those, please let us know, because we personally would love to see them, but then it would be a great way to share with the other fans too, because I'm sure they'd be dying to see. I mean, that's the stuff that makes it so important. That's like speaking to you and hearing these like stories of just being a human, interacting with other humans. It's like, I think we lose sight of what it means to be a fan of a musician. You know, we kind of hold you guys in this super high light and just like idolize you, and just speaking to you now is just like, you're human. You know, you're human just like us, and it's awesome to have that conversation and to think the same thing of Rick Ocasek of the Cars. I mean, he's just a guy offering insight to you. So I think the humanity is the most important thing.
Well, yeah, everybody has an important story to tell. Every single person on this planet is walking, living proof that, you know, like, I mean, I think we're taught to believe that, you know, either everything is a miracle or nothing is a miracle, you know, and I mean, like, I have experiences from, you know, my time in Weezer and before Weezer that, you know, to me prove it, that everything is, and I think everyone is. And so, you know, tell your story, sing your song, you know, own your stand in your truth, and you know, contribute your verse to the universe that we're all riding in, you know, because this is fucking cool, man. Being alive is amazing. I hope it's, you know, people don't suffer much and can find peace and love and joy and you know, happiness.
Do you see potential positive outcomes from this quarantine that we're all undergoing along those lines of just people being forced to confront themselves and what they value in life? Because we haven't really had to live lives like these, you know, until this point.
it's kind of a lifeboat mentality, you know, like I was, a couple years ago, I was doing, you know, like some self-work stuff, and something occurred to me. It was, you know, like, remember a couple of years ago when in the headlines, everybody was really upset about refugees, you know, and like people coming from the Middle East to, you know, from Africa and North Africa to Italy or to France, or, you know, across the Mediterranean. And all of these, you know, refugees, children, people drowning in, you know, offshore, you know, and it's like somebody had to go rescue them. And I think that, ultimately we're all refugees, and this planet is a life raft. And, it's hard to visualize what that's like if you've never been homeless, or, you know, never wanted for a warm place to sleep, or a meal, or clean water. Right. But, you know, like there was a time during the early, you know, Weezer time when Pat Wilson, you know, we couldn't afford a place to live, you know, neither he nor I, and both of us kind of like struck out on our own. And I kind of did some couch tripping, and ended up with Amy, you know, the mother of my 3 kids, and which was really nice. You know, she kind of took me in and drove me around to rehearsals and stuff. And Pat lived in a garage, you know, like he literally lived in a garage and slept on a wooden slat. Like he didn't even have a mattress. I think he eventually got a blanket and stuff, you know, and like, you know, and like watching somebody sacrifice, you know, like he could have gone and he had a job when we first got there, but we couldn't, you know, like maintain, you know, full pay, you know, full-time jobs and make it to band rehearsal and show up and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, we kind of had to operate on River's schedule, you know, around that.
With school, right? Yeah.
With school and with his work and whatever. And so, you know, long story short, you know, I think this planet is a life raft and we're all refugees. And so, you know, like what do you do if you're in a life raft with a bunch of other people? You have to like take up as little space as possible and be as conscientious as possible. So if you're like cooped up with your family, or, you know, people that you might maybe take for granted, or not exactly grateful for because they get on your nerves or something during this whole period, I think it's important to maybe reconsider, like, you know, an attitude of gratitude and how to show up as the person making a positive difference in the lives of the people you're with, and certainly one's own, you know. And I'm not saying like let people bully you or walk all over you, but I'm certainly saying don't be mean to people, and be kind, and figure out a way to get better at being nice, you know. I mean, this is certainly an opportunity to do that because people are going to be cooped up together for,
right,
who knows, right?
Who knows?
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we're about to run out of time. I know the video cuts out at about an hour. So before that shuts us off, is there anything that you would like to plug or let the listeners or readers or viewers know that what you've got in the works, if they're coming to the party a little late, or anything you want?
You know, I'd love to come back and do this with you guys again, and I'll play you some songs.
Oh man, actually, we'd love if you're interested, we'd love to do a proper, well-recorded podcast episode with you.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And that way we could have, like, because we know you're an audio guy, so we would love to have a really high quality sound for you and your recordings and everything.
Sure. Yeah. I would love to work with you guys some more and keep this conversation going and share some, you know, like acoustic versions of songs, whether it's over an iPhone or with microphones or whatever. We'll make it cool, you know, make it fun.
Great. We're happy to talk to you anytime in any format. This has been really great, and thank you for being so generous with your time and making this happen. I know people are really enjoying it, and I know we really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for this.
My pleasure, guys. Anytime. Seriously, just ring me up.
All right.
We certainly will. And thank you for everyone out there who's listening and joined in and commented and asked questions. And we're honored to have you, and I'm sure Jason is honored to have you. And it's been a blast. And you have not seen the last of a Chris and Chris Jason co-op.
That's right.
Right on, guys.
Thank you, man. Be well.
Take care, everybody. Be safe.
Bye.